Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overexposed, the BWRM podcast where we delve into the ins and outs of running a real estate photography and videography business. My name's Dave Temple.
And my name is Jackie Kirk. Today, we're continuing our discussion on personality and behaviour types and communication styles. If you haven't listened to part one, then you should probably do that first, or today's episode will not make very much sense. Just a word on the sound quality to our listeners. I'm in the home office. There is building on either side of me, and hopefully the noise isn't too appalling. Hopefully our editors can squash it. In this episode, we're going to focus on how knowing your behavior type can help you understand not just how you communicate, but the styles of those around you too. We'll chat about how you can adjust your own style, we call it style flexing, to make sure that your message hits home, no matter who you're talking to. Stay tuned for some practical tips on flexing your communication muscles and getting your point across loud and clear, or soft and detailed, depends on who you're talking to. That's the whole point. So to start, Dave, for people that are really not bothered about going back to the last episode, can you just give us a quick overview of what the 4 behaviour styles that we categorize our members into are?
Yes, so we've got 4 types: controller, doer, supporter, and talker. And as a sort of rough overview, controllers are super organised, but sometimes have trouble getting going as they want everything to be perfect. So these are list makers. Doers are very analytical and love solving problems, but don't necessarily enjoy sales and selling themselves. Talkers are great at getting going and building relationships, but sometimes miss important details. And supporters are great at building long-lasting relationships, but sometimes struggle to assert themselves and can get taken advantage of if they're not careful.
Awesome. So today's much more practical. Last podcast, we were really focused on delving into these types, what makes them tick, what they struggle with in a lot more detail. Today, we're talking about how you're going to flex your style depending on who you're talking to. So a good way to start is to just look at us, Dave. You're a doer. I'm a talker. We're basically polar opposites when it comes to our behavior and communication styles. So for example, you love details. I really love the big picture. I love talking to people and you prefer cats. And you'll happily spend all night solving a problem. Like I'm used to getting some very late texts from you of just epiphanies and that sort of thing. Whereas I kind of get bored and move on to something else pretty quickly. So we're very different.
The interesting thing, I think, with that, we are completely polar opposites, but we've still managed to build businesses, successful businesses between us with our strengths and recognising our weaknesses.
Well, we're able to build businesses of our own that way, but we're also able most of the time to communicate pretty well with each other. But it hasn't always been like that. Like I was trying to work out how long I've known you actually, and I think it's been 13 years that we've worked together, and 8 of those years have been at BWRM. So now...
I thought you were going to say 8 of those years we've talked to each other.
It feels like 100. But particularly since we started BWRM in 2016, we've been in regular contact with each other multiple times a day, phone, text, emails. Not only that, but even like, I don't know why this is, but when I'm driving and I get bored, you're the person I call and we just have very long chats about all manner of things. So we communicate a lot with each other. When you're building a business and you know, we have very different roles in this business where you're very focused on tech development and I'm focused on kind of big picture stuff. There are often times where we clash, and most of the times that we clash, we actually want the same thing, but the issue is how we're communicating. And so,
well, sometimes we're actually both saying the same thing, just in different ways. So
yeah,
we're in furious agreement.
Yes, and it's really funny, and I think it's taken us a lot of years to see that, and we've had to really learn to mold our communication styles and how we talk to each other. And I know that if I have a great idea, but I need you to help me enact it, if I come to you and I'm just kind of loud and excited and emotional about it, it's like, it's the best idea ever, you're going to love it, and I just say it's going to change the world, blah, 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 you're going to switch off. It's going to kind of trigger that cynical nature in your mind of, this is just emotional madness. She's lost it.
Well, I'm gonna try and break it. That's what I'm going to try and do.
Yes, and break me in the process.
I'm going to try and find the weakness.
So I know now, and I've had to learn to come to you with details, with, if I don't have answers to your question, at least having thought about the questions and a plan on how to find those answers. But to come to you, I have to tone it down a lot, be more calm, say, I have to show you the process of how I got to that idea, and just basically change how I would have communicated if I was talking to myself, in order to get you to be more receptive of it. Otherwise, basically, I have to work a lot bloody harder to get you to listen to me. And I think on the flip side, is you're a details guy, and you used to come to me with thoughts, and it would be, a very, 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 very long email that I just would switch off, and I wouldn't absorb it, and I wouldn't really get the point either. So now you kind of come to me, you give me an overview of what you're trying to do, and then you give me the details, and it all makes sense, and it works really well. So
I think, from my point of view, I think you give me enough that I can go off and come to the same conclusion you do on my own, which means we're both going to agree. And from me sending details to you, I send you the overview, and then you work out the details later. So we both end up in the same place. We just got to provide each other with the relevant information.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, it's something that's been learned over years. So it's taken us time to kind of figure that out about each other and adjust our styles. It's quite a difficult thing. It feels quite unnatural if you're a quiet person, for example, to have to speak louder in order to be received better. So you are sort of having to do things that will feel unnatural, but obviously you practice and it feels better and you get better results, so you do it more. But yeah, so that's pretty much what we're talking about today.
And this is relevant, by the way, because obviously you're going to be meeting a lot of people in business, vendors, agents, EAs and PAs who aren't the same personality type of you as you. And it can be very frustrating trying to talk to someone in your own style who isn't listening in the same style and won't listen in the same style. So, in order to communicate well, you do need to adapt to the other person's way of working.
Yeah, massively. So we've done quite a bit of this in our last conference. Actually, we did some role play and we did some different scenarios, and it was really successful. So I think that's what we'll do today, is we'll run you guys through just a few different scenarios. We've picked some different combinations. We haven't done every combination of behavior type because it'd be a very long podcast and a lot of you will get bored. Most of the talkers will definitely get bored. So we've chosen what we find to be the most common scenario combinations or personality combinations. I think overall, very broadly speaking, the majority of our members and our business owners are talkers or controllers. It's one of those two things. And the majority of agents are talkers, often with an assistant or EA or whatever who's a controller. Although, Dave, you've recently met quite a few doer agents, so we've got some of those in there as well.
Yeah, I think in my experience, doers are more often than not directors or sort of high-powered agents. That's just been my experience anyway. People who want things done, onto the next job, get it done, off you go type stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting because they could also be talkers in that regard, who are just very busy, successful talkers. So talkers who have learned to work on the behavior types that they know will help them succeed. So, for example, you take Guy, our CEO, who is naturally a talker, so naturally big picture, but he has, in his role at BWM, really had to focus on the doer side of his nature to make sure things get done, to make sure things stay on track, and he's put in all of those procedures. But he's still got that sort of impatience where he just wants things to get done. So I wonder if that's what maybe some of those agents are as well. And often it's quite funny, these talkers can be misconstrued as being doers because they come in, they know what they need, They're very good at their jobs. So they're impatient, saying, just get it done. This is what I need. I don't need to worry about the details. Just do it. Do you think that could be sort of...
It could easily be, but I guess it doesn't actually really matter, because the sort of dominant, because we're talking about dominant behaviour, when you're confronted with that kind of, just get on with it type situation, you still have to deal with it, regardless of whether it's coming from a talker point of view or a doer point of view. So
definitely
it can be quite confronting. So
yeah, and almost what they're doing is style flexing themselves, saying, in this regard, in this situation, I need this to happen, and this is how I need to communicate.
Exactly. So just as we read these examples out, have a think about what you would do in that situation, what your natural reaction would be, what the effects of that natural reaction might be, and how you could flex to get a better result out of the situation.
So example number 1, we've got a controller photographer and a talker agent. Now, we know that talkers have short attention spans, love attention, though, on themselves. Big picture, no detail, can go off track, whereas controllers love lists, love structure, love things to just be exact, love specifics and precision and clarity, right? So if you're a controller communicating with a talker in general, you'd want to try and just lighten up and be a bit friendly and fun, and be excited about new ideas. So you're trying to sell to the person, not the features. You're trying to just have some enthusiasm and energy. I think talkers feed a lot of people's energies. Talkers feed a lot of people's energy. Don't bog them down with details as much as details matter to you, and try to close whatever conversation or deal or that you're trying to make before you feel that all the necessary facts are disclosed. So close before you lose their attention, basically. So let's talk about a scenario, Dave, an on-site scenario. Run me through an on-site scenario where a controller might have some challenges with a talker agent.
Okay, so imagine you're a controller. So you're a photographer, you're a controller on site with a talker agent. They've wandered off to talk to the vendor and left you to shoot the house. You've been given little instruction except some vague notions of lifestyle and lovely flow. The talker agent is already distracted and talking to the vendor. Following your natural instinct is going to interrupt their chat and probably annoy them, because they've already told you about the lifestyle and the flow. What more do you need? The agent will likely leave in 10 minutes. What do you do?
Right. So let's kind of think about what that's like for a controller. Your agent's just kind of giving you some very vague direction, lifestyle, lovely flow, but you want them to be happy. And obviously photography is subjective. What you want as a controller is specific instructions and a list that you can check off.
All right. So what will be your natural reaction in this situation, do you think, Jackie?
I would want clarity, but, controllers are slightly less assertive than talkers. So you kind of in this moment where you go, I want to ask them the question, but I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to interrupt them, but I need to know what I'm doing. So.
Well, and you're probably also not going to get a huge amount of information from them anyway, because,
Well, you can. I think you can. I think if you're a controller and you need information from a talker, you just need to ask specific questions. Don't ask open-ended questions. Don't give them room to waffle and be vague. Do it in a way. I would get clarity. Honestly, I would say even if you're a controller and you're not sure, get clarity. Go in, wait for a point that you're not going to be annoying, and just say, so sorry, just to make sure we're completely covered this, because I really want to make sure I get you the best possible results. So again, you're selling to the person, you're making sure they know that you care, and that, talkers actually love to not have to think of the details and make that your selling point. And this is what you do in your sales meetings anyways. This is what I tell lots of controllers when they're selling to talkers. Go in and you're doing the stuff they don't want to do. So, as a talker, I love it when people do the things I don't want to do. That's the best part. So you go in and you say, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure you get the best possible result because your brand is so high end or whatever. Make them look good in front of the vendor. If the vendor is there, talkers love to be made to look good. And just say, I just want to clarify, did you want both bedrooms shot? Did you want all the bathrooms shot? Or would you rather only do 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and I'll get a couple of lifestyle images as well to really sell the emotiveness of the house. So you can be clear and precise with your communications. You just need to communicate in a way that's going to get to the point quickly, that's going to make them look good, make them feel good, and that they can go, yep, that sounds good, get on with it.
I would do something similar, I think, as a controller. It would be hard to do, but that's the point of style flexing. So you need to be more assertive, so it would be difficult. But I think I'd be interrupting them politely and saying, I've had a look around the house. Obviously, the strengths are this, that, and the other. I really think we should be doing this, and it's not taking the decision away from them, because you don't want to do that, but putting what you think is the correct choice and then getting input from them. So you're not just asking them for information.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I think, look, it just comes down to, when you're talking to a talker, show that you're excited about it, even if you're panicking because you haven't been given clear instructions. So show that you've got the passion for it. So just,
yep,
beautiful house, I'm so pumped to be shooting for it, what I think we should do, blah, blah, blah. Get your clarity in that way. And if you're concerned about annoying them, just do it in a way that makes them look good and they won't be annoyed, basically.
Yeah, so enthuse about the house, talk about the strengths of it in front of the vendor. That will reflect onto the agent, because the agent obviously, and you can mention things like, oh, it's such a great lifestyle around it. Reflect those things back to them that they've already said, so they know they've been heard. And then you've got clarity, and you can go and write yourself a list, and off you go.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, make sure that once they've told you, you hear them first time. I think something that really annoys talkers is having to then repeat themselves and to say the same message. So once you've got it, good. Be like, cool, I'm on it. See you later. I think that's good. And so, the same goes into if you're in a sales meeting. So I can't remember who it was, but I was working with a controller who was talking about going into sales meetings, and she was going, this is the list, these are the things that we do, when actually she just needed to sort of show that she's passionate and excited, but then also say, and I will focus on all the little details and the small things, make sure everything is covered so you don't have to. I think that's the biggest message I can say for any controller selling to a talker agent, is make it clear that you're worrying about the little things so they don't have to. It's all about them, the time that you're saving them, ways to make them look good, that sort of thing. So make your difference your strength.
Yeah, there's a reason that, generally speaking, talker agents have controller PAs or EAs. It's because they need someone to take control of those things and get stuff done. So you can be that person and provide a service that they're missing.
Yeah, cool. So let's go on to the next scenario. The next scenario, we've got a talker photographer and we've got a doer director. So you've got a talker communicating with a doer. And also, as an aside, guys, this doesn't just have to be in the workforce. Like, my husband is a doer and I am a talker, and I 100% have to flex my style in order to get him to do what I want him to do. So in general, a talker, I'm going to do talker communicating with a doer first, and then I'll say a controller if you've got a controller in the room as well. I'll get to that bit. But a talker communicating with a doer, this is the best way for me to communicate with Dave. It's the best way for me to communicate with my husband. It's very, very difficult and feels very unnatural, as we said, but once it starts working, you can see its value. So the temptation as a talker to, when you're talking to doers, is to go in and speak the way you normally speak and be excited and sell the big idea. Don't do that. Be formal and to the point. Don't go in with emotions and telling them how beautiful they are and, what are their kids' names, blah, blah, blah. Be formal, to the point. What's the point? Why are you here? Who are you? So we're taking this from a document as well that Richard Mendelsohn provided us with. So you guys might remember Richard Mendelsohn. He did, we've done a few chats with him, or we've done one chat with him. We'll definitely have him on in the future. He comes on. He's one of our coaches. He's at all of our conferences. He's very involved in BWM from a coaching and performance coaching basis. Anyways, he's given us this document, which is basically a table of how to communicate with different people. So we're not just making this stuff up, okay? Anyway, a talker communicating with a doer, this is why I laughed and had to give this explanation, is the second point on it is keep your distance, no touching. So I remember the first time I met you, Dave. I don't know if you remember, but we were at an awards night, and we'd only ever spoken on the internet, which I think is your preferred form of communication, is different rooms. And I think I went up to you, they like shook your hand. I think I may have tried to hug you, be like, it's so good to finally meet you in person. And I just remember you standing there frozen, just like, you could not have been more uncomfortable. It stayed with me. So
the look of fear.
oh, it's so funny. Whereas, yeah, so be formal and to the point. Keep your distance. Don't touch them. Never touch a doer. Don't joke or waste time. So everything I just did there, don't do that. Let them feel important. Avoid being apologetic. Why is that? What's it about apologies? This is just a waste of time?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think probably it's just, it is just a waste of time. We already know that you were wrong, so just get on with it.
And don't feel rejected by the possible bluntness of the doer. Yeah, I'm laughing because all of this just rings really true. And I know that if I go to Dave, be formal, get to the point, don't be offended. It's quite funny because we're both trying to flex our styles. I find that you're actually quite cautious of making sure that I know you're not trying to offend me, to the point where it's like, I'm not that much of a baby. Like, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I tweaked it's just not bad, but I just sort of might be slightly better. Like, you can say it was a bit bad, Dave. Like, I can handle it. But yeah, it's just quite funny. So talker communicating with doer, basically do the opposite of what you would normally do, right?
Pretty much.
So basically now you're a talker talking to a controller as well, because remember there's an assistant in the room. So two controllers, they're a little bit like more receptive to a talker, I think, than a doer, but you need to be really factual. You need to give more facts than you like. So a doer will be analyzing what you say anyways, and will probably get to the point pretty quickly. A controller will want to check and double check and triple check. So give them more details and more facts than you like, and be prepared to answer questions. Don't try to impress them with your importance. They don't care. Don't bluff answers. They'll see right through it. If you don't know, you just say, I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that, and then get back to them ASAP, because they will be expecting it. Again, don't be too touchy-feely. And to persuade them, be direct and confident after all questions are answered. So don't go on for too long, as is the temptation and as I have just done.
Yes. So here's the scenario. You're a talker photographer invited into the office for a meeting. You're expected to enter a room full of salespeople, all eager to hear your sales pitch and join in a lovely chat over coffees and croissants. Instead, you're in an office with the doer director and his controller EA. They want to know exactly what it is that you're going to do differently than their current supplier, and the EA has a list of items to go through. So what's your natural reaction as a talker, Jackie? What should you not do?
My natural reaction would be to try and get them to like me, and to try and warm them up and find a point of common interest, and to try and build a relationship. But I think very quickly...
And talk.
Yes, and talk. My natural instinct would be to talk. And you actually nailed it, Dave, because the actual thing you should do is shut the hell up and listen to their questions and answer them directly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in this scenario, the director, I would imagine, would want to be driving the meeting and want to be, finding out information, because they're a doer and they want information. What's your prices? How quickly do you deliver? What's better about your thing, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously the controller PA will want to know, details of how your media comes to them and what they have to do differently. Do they need a login, et cetera? And so if you're just talking over the top and talking about how lovely everything is and, whatever, they're just not going to get the information they want.
Yeah, true. I think there's two challenges. The first challenge is figuring out what people are. when you step in the door. It could be your first time ever being face to face with them. So there will need to be some sort of conversation, but a doer will make it very, very clear that they don't have all day. It'll be very obvious. Look at their body language. It'll be very obvious that they're not here for a long time.
There'll be no croissants.
There will be no croissants. I think the second thing is what's difficult if they're driving the meeting might not be going in a direction that you wanted to. So being able to control the direction of the meeting without waffling is challenging. And the way to do that is to be asking questions. And I don't think any doers or controllers will have issues with asking questions as long as they're relevant questions. One of the second challenges is if you have a doer or a controller agent, it would be a doer agent trying to drive the meeting if you're a talker. A controller isn't really going to drive the meeting. They'll ask questions, but they'll want you to kind of take the lead because a talker is a bit more assertive than a controller. A doer agent driving the meeting, if they, for example, are driving the meeting and it's purely about price, something we talk often about is that's not the conversation that we want to have. As BWM photographers, our conversation is about quality and service and not about price. So being able to redirect the direction of that meeting without taking it over or wasting time is very challenging. And the way that you do that is by asking relevant questions. So when there's a moment you can...
And then critically listening to the answers.
Yes. So don't interrupt them, which is classic talker behavior. And I can be a bit harsh on talkers because I am one. And I can be a bit harsh on doers because Dave is one actually. So supporters and controllers will get off lightly. Asking questions, listening to the answers. So for example, if they're driving you down price, ask them what matters to them. Ask them how they're getting their listings. Ask them what's setting them aside from the competition and get them to analyze their way to the point where quality is more important than price and turnaround time is more important than price and service is more important than price and that sort of thing. But don't tell them. With a doer, they're much more likely to agree with you if they think they figured it out themselves. So ask them the questions that are going to get them to where you want to be so you're all on the same page.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think just being listened to, when a doer talks, it's because they have something relevant to say generally. So making sure that you're listening to that and addressing that, important issue is going to go down well.
Okay, so then we've got a final scenario. We've got a supporter photographer and a talker agent. So supporters communicating with talkers. Again, speaking of assertiveness, supporters are probably the least assertive of our behavior types, whereas talkers are very assertive. So the risk with supporters is getting walked all over and just not being heard. Talkers just love to talk, supporters love to listen. It actually can work really well, but if you're trying to get a message across as a supporter, it's going to be a challenge. So in general, a supporter communicating with a talker, you need to accept the openness and friendliness of talkers. It might feel a bit overwhelming, but just roll with it. You need to be friendly, but don't let them waste a lot of your time. If a talker sees that they've got someone with a sympathetic ear, they're going to take advantage of it. Talkers love an audience and supporters are really supportive. So don't let them waste a lot of your time. Don't bog them down with details. That's sort of standard for anyone talking to a talker. And conclude by appealing to the personal ego and do it more quickly than you would like to. Okay, so that's in general what you're trying to do as a supporter talking to a talker. Dave, what's the scenario you have for us?
All right, so you're a supporter photographer on site with a talker agent. The agent tells you that the home has been in the family for 50 years, owned by a couple who've been married for 60. They raised 16 kids here. There are marks on all the door frames with writing showing where the kids grew up. There are pictures of all the family dogs that have passed away over the years. The husband has recently passed away. The wife, who's now 98, is running short of money and is forced to sell the house. I've only charged her for 10 photos of this 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom mansion. But if you feel like snapping a few more...
So a supporter and a talker would probably have similar reactions here.
Well, what will be the natural reaction, do you think, of a supporter?
The natural reaction of a supporter is to just really care about these people and almost offer to do the shoot for free.
Yeah.
Basically.
Or spend 3 hours talking to somebody and, asking about all the dogs, taking photos of all the bits and pieces.
Couldn't they do that much talking? Maybe. I think, but the core...
Or listening to the person, getting the story of the person.
Yeah, I think the core message is they would care and they would put the client and their vendor above themselves, which is lovely, but then you're also putting it above your business and you are running a business. So, yeah, the natural reaction is to say yes and to just do it, but you'll end up probably being out of pocket at the end of that shoot. So I think your flexed reaction to the situation, it's not even first of all, there's a practical solution where you could offer them where you could send them the raw photos and they could choose what they want edited, and then you're not really out of pocket and they have their choices. I think that's probably the win-win that I would go for is, look, you've booked 10 photos. I really think that that this property deserves more. I think there can be more. I'm going to take a few extra, and that's me giving my own time. I won't charge you for the extra time. I will send you the unedited extras and you can choose what you would like edited for X amount per image. And I think that's sort of, you're giving them something sort of charitable by taking more time to do the shoot. You're giving them an option to buy extra images. And so it's a bit of a win-win, I think, but you're not going to be out of pocket because you're running a business. You still need to cover your costs. So that would be the practical solution. How you communicate that, if they straight up say, hey, can you do us some shots for free? That's where you're going to struggle, I think, because they're going to be assertive and you're going to be conflict averse. So you're going to just say, yeah, okay, just this once, right? So I think you do need to, it's such a tough one. It really is. You do need to be assertive.
I would be looking to there's a lot of emotion in there, right? There's a lot of history. There's a lot of house for a start. There's a lot of emotional pressure because you've been put in a situation where someone's suggesting that you work for free with all of these emotional decisions hanging in the air. So I agree with you. I think I would be turning the emotion back on the people who've turned it on me. Maybe this is a doer thing, I don't know. But I'd be saying, look, there's a lot here. Clearly, you've got a lot of history here. I don't want to miss anything. And, I want to make sure I capture, the right things. But I can't choose how to present your house based on your memories here and all the rest of it. So why don't we do a shoot where I'll just shoot whatever I think, and then you guys can have a look through, and choose how you want to best present it and choose how many photos. If you choose 10, great. If you choose more than that, well, we'll charge you for the extras.
I think the thing with these behavior types is there are certain things about your behavior and your personality that actually works in your favor, and you don't want to completely eradicate that. For if you're a talker, you are good at building relationships and selling the big picture. So you're not trying to completely erase your personality. And in the same way, supporters build long-lasting relationships. And they do this because they go above and beyond. So you want to find a balance of what you're comfortable with, but also making sure that you're not out of pocket in your business. So if I was a supporter and it's my first ever shoot for this client, and, not every client is going to be a little old lady in the house with the dogs and the whatever, perhaps I would say, hey, you've booked 10. I'm going to throw in a couple of extra shots for free. And you just do 2, and you say it's just this once, but you don't make a habit out of it. I think, I'm wary of saying don't go full supporter, because that is part of what makes supporters special and what makes them retain clients for years and years and years.
I think realistically there are a lot of solutions to all of these situations, but there are also things that you want to avoid. And the thing that you want to avoid in this situation is giving your time away for free, which is probably the natural reaction, because, you say that they won't all be little old ladies, but next time it'll be a guy who's lost his job, or do you know what I mean? That you'll always, if you bow to that natural reaction immediately and, the worst case scenario, I'll do it for free, this is a terrible story, then there'll be other terrible stories. And
yeah. And I think you can probably go above and beyond and show compassion in ways that won't affect your bottom line. So making sure you're moving enough stuff, making sure it's shot at the right time of day, just being kind and caring and gentle on site. Often it's nothing to do with what you charge you for the photos. It's the fact that you're being really gentle and soft and kind to those owners. And it's that experience that makes a huge difference that will stick with the agent, is that they know that you're going to be like that. So, yeah, I think the key thing to think about is just keep your kind, caring, compassionate nature, because you will build those lasting relationships, but don't do it at the expense of your business, because what's the point? You're better off just not having a business and being kind and caring and compassionate to your friends and family. So, yeah, in that situation, Dave, I think many things you could do. You could do the thing where you provide raw photos. You could also say, all right, well, let's just get you the best 10 photos we possibly can. What are your favorite things? Where are your special memories? Blah, blah, blah. And then really make sure you absolutely nail 10 photos, because you can do that.
Yep, exactly right.
So I guess that's a few scenarios there, guys, that will just help you hopefully understand that no matter what your behavior type, you will probably be encountering, you will definitely be encountering people with different behavior types. And the temptation is going to be to go harder on your type. I know certainly that, if I first encounter a doer and they're not receptive to me, I'm going to try even harder to connect with them. I'm going to try even harder to charm them or make them laugh or whatever. And that's just going to annoy them more. So really understanding that and not just kind of going even harder on your own style and thinking about it's almost like you're speaking two different languages. You need to try to speak their language instead of just trying to speak your language louder, because it's not going to be heard. So identifying what that other personality type is, knowing and understanding what yours is, and then understanding what you need to do to flex your style in order to be heard properly in the way that you want to be.
This is not a superpower, but it will definitely reduce frustration when you're dealing with people that you don't feel like you can get on with. And I think from my point of view, now that, I love this stuff because I love analysis and more details and whatever, but it really does help understand the people that you're dealing with, what you can do better in communicating with them, and how you can understand each other better, and that leads to better relationships, and that's what our businesses are built on. So it's all good stuff.
Yeah, great. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this 2-part series. This is like one of our favorite topics to talk on. We speak a lot about it at our conferences and in our workshops. Reach out to us if you have any questions or thoughts, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.